Ear 63.
Testing. Okay, here we go. We present-day humans have sought knowledge but received nihilism. We did not seek nihilism, but we found it anyway, and perhaps it found us. We found it where there ought to have been beauty and strength. This accursed absence of everything thwarts our endeavors and denies us our victories. It saps us of hope. It makes us look a fool in front of those that need us to be leaders. We disappoint ourselves and our families as we flounder and drown in this nihilism. Some of us put on a facade of stoicism or a show of faith, but those guys don't know what to do either. Many heroes have come to save us, but we are still lost. Many battlefields have been won and lost, but we don't know whether it's a war yet. We don't even know who our enemy is. We don't know who our leaders are. Still no generals come forward to organize a resistance. And even if they did, who is the enemy anyway, and where are they hiding? And under what banner do we rally? Look, I'm no leader, but let me have a moment and try and make sense of this for you. In America in 1951, the philosopher Willard Van Armen Quine wrote a paper called The Two Dogmas of Empiricism. The work succeeded in bringing into doubt all notions of objective truth that had existed since the 17th century, rational or empirical. That's since René Descartes. It's a long time. A few years before, the great genius Ludwig Wittgenstein had concluded, "What can be said at all can be said clearly, and whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must remain silent." The rude shock that there are things, most things in fact, that cannot be said, should have served to prepare us for Quine and his post-truth world. After his death, and at about the same time as Quine was destroying truth, Wittgenstein's last work was published. Hidden within its difficult pages lies a solution to the present problems of the world. The meaning of words come from their use in language. Words don't have meanings until they are used. These dictionaries are full of lies, and claiming to know what a word means before it is used is foolishness. Sorry, TERFs, but woman does not mean woman until it is used to mean so. If it does get used to mean something different, then it means something different. Worse than that, the notion of preset meanings of words are dogmatic notions. In the post-truth world, anyone that claims to have a dogmatic truth must be wrong. If you see the world as a clown world, as I do, now is not the time for fear. It is a time for clarity in action. Let me give you some clarity.
Please leave your message after the tone.
The loss of dogmatic truth is not the loss of meaning. You don't need to fear the post-truth world. This post-truth world can still have meaning in it. It just requires you to fight for that meaning every day, to define it every day, again and again. You just need to stop taking it for granted. Rome was a great empire, but it's not anymore. It was a great empire, and it remained great while men fought for it. If you want the word woman to mean adult human female, then use it that way. Cease to use that meaning, and that meaning will cease to be. While it seems to be true that words do not carry immutable meaning, Wittgenstein did leave us with everything we need to have meaning. But do we have the will to use words how we mean them? Personally, I believe that everyone wants to show compassion for those that suffer. The suicide rate of trans men and women is astronomical. It's like 11 times greater than the rest of the population. And this is terrible. It's unacceptable. And this is a choice between using words how we mean them and reciting utterances when we're instructed to do so, like good little boys and girls, instructed to do so by a mob. If I require permission to use words, it is not me using them any more than it is my guitar's choice to sound a D minor chord when I strum it. If I can't use my words, I have no way of creating meaning, just reciting someone else's. I diminish in that moment. You don't know me in that moment. I go away. I fear the person who controls my speech. It makes no difference who that person is. I fear them all the same, even when they are a mob, especially when they are a mob. In this post-truth world, we have enemies. Our non-existence generals, our heroes in hiding, they seem not to be able to name them. So let me name them for you. Post-structuralism.
Post-structuralism.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Are you tired of being wrong? Are facts and evidence getting in the way of your prejudices? Or perhaps you want to bully people and get away with it. Here at Ollie's Unorthodox Online Thug University, we specialize in affirming your shallow and bigoted notions of justice when nothing else possibly can. You can major in intolerance without the hassle of knowing that it's exactly you that is the problem with the world, and then go on to earn a post-grad in canceling everything. And at the end of it all, you can take peace of mind in knowing not only that your impending long-term unemployment is everyone else's fault but yours, but our lecturers will empower you with the shouting skills to tell absolutely everyone exactly what is entirely their fault. So join us today and set yourself on a path of liberal retardation. At Ollie's, we're putting the docs back into unorthodox.
Hi, welcome back.
Before Quine, one of the great truths that almost every epistemological philosopher held on to went something like, "If I know a bachelor, I know an unmarried male." Quine ruined this truth. Now, to know a bachelor might be to know an on-campus feminist who chooses to identify as a bachelor because she finds the term maiden or spinster offensive. And I understand why she does. It is in moments like these that we find people not only using words, but choosing words, selecting them based on how they wish to identify themselves, like a girl choosing a dress for a party on Saturday night, thinking how she wants to look on the night. It's as though these careful choices of words will recreate culture, a more desirable culture, more equitable. Choose a different word and you get a different outcome. Choose carefully, recreate your culture carefully, just choose new words. This misinformed notion is derived from post-structuralism, and it is the first of our enemies, and it must be beaten back. Choosing a word just because it sounds just because it's superior in aesthetics, more pleasing, not because the word signifies the correct meaning to the common people. This is never right, and you know it instinctively. The people grow tired of this. They entertain mean thoughts of how to get meaning back, or how to be themselves again. I don't want to see those mean thoughts come to fruition. It is the belief of post-structuralists that words are just constructions, and they are right, of course. All words are made up. None exist naturally. We have to invent them. Words don't grow on trees. But where they are wrong is in their notion that our language system is deliberately constructed by patriarchal elites to exercise power over oppressed groups. It is the opinion of our enemies that whoever created our language filled it full of binary opposition. The first part of the theory really is that the Western language is a series of these binary oppositions, words and their opposites like male and female, black and white, on and off, up and down, natural and artificial, young and old, and you get the idea. When you create youngness, you create oldness. You see a group of people, a huge group of people, you label some of them young, and in doing so, you automatically label the rest of them old. You have created oldness by labeling youngness. The second part of the theory is that one of these oppositions, these binary oppositions, always is value-laden, which makes it preferable to its opposite. The example most often used is absent versus present. Everything can be either absent or present. There's a bunch of things, and if some are present, that means others are absent. But we naturally prefer the state of something being present, like the absent thing is disappointing. You can see that it's not far from here to say that everyone is split into binary oppositions of male versus female, black versus white, gay versus straight, and that these oppositions were structured in a hierarchy, one over the other, to give one term value and deny the other the same value. And clearly the claim is going to be that males are valued over females, and white is valued over black, straight over gay. And the result of this shady process is the binary opposition of people. Unfortunately for the post-structuralists, this theory is 100% false. There are no binary oppositions. Consider the supposed hierarchy of fat versus thin. I ask you, where does Arnold Schwarzenegger fit in on that binary opposition? Is he fat or thin? He is neither, right? He's muscular. But so was Bruce Lee, and he and Arnie are nothing alike. Arnold Schwarzenegger isn't fat or thin. He is massive or buff. Sometimes he's cut. He's iconic and healthy. He's masculine. Bruce Lee is iconic too, not massive. Both are masculine. Both are healthy. One would never refer to a chemo patient as thin or someone on a hunger strike as thin, just as you wouldn't refer to a sumo wrestler as fat. Consider the Nevermind album by Nirvana. It's not old or new, it's 90s. No matter how old it gets, it will always be 90s. And we didn't have the word 90s until the 1st of January 1990. It's not as though an oppressive patriarchy happened to up and form the term 90s one day so that they could oppress, I don't know what, the 80s? What is the binary opposition for 90s? It has none. What are the binary oppositions for words like pregnant, imprisoned, or assaulted? I've never been any of those things, but no one would ever refer to me as non-pregnant, unimprisoned, or unassaulted. That's just not how we would ever talk. Binary oppositions don't exist. Our language is not constructed for us along binary lines. Not everyone is young or old. We have newborns, babies, toddlers, small kids, children, adolescents, teenagers, young adults, young men, young women, adults, middle-aged, over the hill, senior, elderly, and old. That you are not young does not make you old. You can be not young and younger than that. You could be a newborn. Consider the body types of mesomorph, endomorph, ectomorph. They're not binary. Consider how we talk for some animals, like sheep. We have lambs, ewes, rams, wethers. No binary terms there either. Most gradings are not as simple as qualified or unqualified, which would be binary terms, qualified being the value laden. Sitting exams at school, we have A, B, C, D, and F. Consider martial arts. We have white belt, yellow belt, orange, green, blue, purple, brown, black. Not binary, and there's no value-laden term there. It's not good to be black, it's not good to be white. To be a white belt within a black belt class is bad. To be a black belt within a white belt class is bad. It all depends on where you're at with your progress. It's not as simple as binary oppositions. We don't actually have on and off. We have undecided, in between, or paused as well. We don't have up and down. We have stationary, left and right, forwards, backwards too. We don't have black and white either. We have Asian, Latino, and many other skin colors. Hierarchies don't exist either. Present is not actually value-laden over absent. The presence of money is good, but the absence of sickness is good too. The presence of a hangover is bad, and the absence of your children is bad. It just depends on what you are talking about, within which context you are using the terms present or absent. Being thin is not good if you're trying to go up a weight level in a boxing match, or if you're a 19-year-old man trying to pack on muscle. Being pretty is not good if it's your first day in prison. Being natural is not good if you need a pacemaker. Lots of women choose not to have their natural hair color and believe it's good. Binary language is a lie. Value-laden hierarchies don't exist. Now that you understand this, you can also understand that systems of oppression did not create the binary oppositions of male and female and then assign all values to males. Rather, within early human societies, all humans had either a vagina or a penis. Our ancestors just valued defining the ones that could reproduce together over the special name to call males who liked knitting or women who liked football. And men aren't value-laden. In fact, there is a mountain of evidence to show that many cultures assign the status disposable to men, and we seem to make it a greater crime worthy of a longer punishment to assault or murder a woman. It's important to know that the absence of binary oppositions doesn't mean that there isn't the other, as men like Edmund Husserl or Edmund Said believed. Just that it's not a construction of language, so reconstructing language won't help. I read a dissertation once that touched on post-structuralism. It discussed a teacher who was able to change her students' opinions on a frog that they were handling for a school lesson. The teacher reported that when she asked the children to hold the frog, they would yell, "Yuck," and "gross," and then refuse to do so. But when she encouraged the students to say, "Cool" and "awesome," they would hold the frog happily. Thus she concluded that language changed what the frog was in the context of this lesson. It went from being yuck to awesome just because of language. This is wrong. The frog is what the frog is. The student that held the frog for long enough would find out the frog was 200 grams, smelly, green, and went rid up. There is nothing and no one that can change this. All the awesomes in the world cannot turn that green frog blue. But enough activism might change the meaning of the word green into the color of the clear sky at midday. Now if they can do that, what else can they change? They've already changed the meaning of the word woman. To be fair, the post-structuralists are not trying to change natural objects like frogs. They are trying to change human behaviors and cultural structures. Like if you change marriage to something other than a man or a woman, you'll change the structure of the role of women. Or perhaps if you change the construction of woman to include males, you'll change the sexual objectification of women and the notion that women aren't strong and always menstruate. But it's all the same thing. When we want to use a word to find someone that menstruates, we use the word that defines them. And that word is and always has been woman, and thus we use it. We use it. But when words are prescribed to us by a far-left, politically active and heavily biased SJW mob, we do not choose to use their words, we recite them, we utter them under duress. We adopt a different body language, you can tell it when you see it. One of fear and nervousness, sometimes anger. The pitch of our voice changes, our eyes dart nervously, our true meaning is lost and another false one imposes itself, and we diminish. All of you listening to this need to tell me something, want to tell me something, you long to tell me something, and when you do, you'll use the words that you need to use, and I'll find out about you based on the words that you choose to use. Your enemies want to prevent this. They know the present laws prevent them from harming your person, so they get around it by harming your meaning. There's no laws against changing words. With no meaning, then I'll never know what you mean when you speak to me, and they can control what you say, and they use you to build the new world of just constructions and fairer hierarchies. How well do you think the straight white male will fare in this new world? Words are changing, and it's the on-campus activism, organised protest and cancel culture that is doing so. If every time that you deny that a trans woman is a woman and you get publicly shamed, and you'll stop doing that too. Don't pretend you're braver than the rest of us. It's hard to do that, and that's waiting for you. A lot of the impetus to protest, to organise, to cancel, comes from the misguided belief that changing our language will fix things, make things better, more just. It won't. A punch in the face by any other name will hurt just as much. The sooner we learn and accept that the meaning of words comes from their natural use in language and from nowhere else, the sooner the activists will stop running a chainsaw through our language in an attempt to change the structures the language refer to. Those of you that want to face down these activists in the street are like these generals that want two armies to charge into battle, believing their side is the stronger. The clever general needs to make our enemy believe their cause is not just, that the policing of language is pointless. Post-structuralists genuinely believe that they can intelligently change the world by the careful management of language. It's true that language is changing, and with it the world. But it changes not because we eliminate binary oppositions or fight against value-laden terms. It changes because we are using our words differently. In the absence of being able to make generalizations about women, we no longer know what women are. We lose that knowledge of them. Oh, I'm sure we mouth the appropriate platitudes about stunning and brave, but within the empty rhetoric, it's really just silence, the absence of meaning. A vacuum of honest discussion about the costs and benefits, the virtues and vices of women, of what women really are. But the change doesn't stop there. When the only ones truly brave enough to discuss the taboo issues of gender roles, cultural differences between races or logical inconsistencies in the trans debate, when the only ones brave enough to discuss those issues are the ultra-masculine alphas of the red pill or the far-right wingers in the darker parts of the internet, those voices take on a meaning that they otherwise wouldn't have had. There is a big difference in learning how to date from your father and learning how to date from some weirdo on Twitter who uses outrageous language just so that they can generate more followers because that's how they make their money. One of the big changes I've seen in my lifetime is that the left is now crazy, and the right now seems stable and fair. Feminism seems anti-intellectual, while the MRAs seem really brave and strong. This was never the case in my youth. It's changed. This can't have been the outcome desired by the post-structuralists, but it's the outcome that they've created. To return to having words mean what they usually mean. To get to a place where our language is not policed by the blue-haired 23-year-old who's writing a thesis on how to hate men more efficiently. To learn what another person wants to tell you as truthfully as possible, we need to get away from the idea that language contains oppressive binary oppositions. We need to put to rest the notion that man is laden with more value than women. Speaking the word boy does not do structural violence to girls. Naming wives or girlfriends does not create single women as the oppressed other. But speaking naturally does allow each human in this world to communicate their meaning to each other, so that we may communicate such necessities as love and forgiveness, joy and longing, confusion and misunderstanding. These things are important. After all, telling your son that he's a wonderful non-binary human doesn't contain the same meaning as telling him that he's your favorite boy in the whole world. Understand, using the words you want to use does convey your meaning, and you should do so with care. That meaning might be difficult. What it doesn't do, and what it will never do, is cause structural violence or create oppression. You are not guilty and never will be guilty of these charges. Now pass on this message and stand ready to fight for meaning every single day.
And now, a word from
I don't know.
They never knew what lurked behind the cliché blonde bob.
I am disoriented.
They never dreamed that she would get off Facebook long enough to fight back.
I'm not okay with it.
But now, Karen Rambo is one soccer mom that's been stuck in the drive-thru for the last time.
And I do care about my rights.
Winner of Idaho's Whinging Housewife Award. And from the creators of Becky's Revenge and Stacy Strikes Back comes the most pointless movie of 2020. I demand to speak to the manager. This summer, insufferability has a name.
Welcome back.
So you understand now that when we lost truth, and we did lose it, we lost the shortcut, the certainty, the direct avenue to preset, solid, universal, perpetual meaning of words. That there would be words, there would be their meaning, and that is all there is to it. But I hope I've made it clear too, that we have not lost meaning, just we have to work hard. We have to keep using words how we want to use them to show what their meaning really is. I hope too that I've shown you that in the melee, in the battle, in the chaos, rose the enemy. And the enemy would say that all meaning is constructed meaning, constructed with an evil intent, constructed in a binary fashion, with the intent of loading up one of these binary terms, one of these binary oppositions with value. Now I've demonstrated that that's wrong, but how do we fight back? This enemy will tell white people that their whiteness creates blackness, and that the whiteness exists in a hierarchy over blackness, and that very existence is racist. Before you even think, before you even act, before you even choose, you are guilty for being born white because your whiteness creates blackness, and that there is a hierarchy. How do we fight back? When our sons go to school, they'll tell them that their masculinity is a binary opposition to femininity, and unfairly and wrongly, their masculinity is favored, value-laden in a hierarchy over femininity. The very presence of masculinity oppresses femininity. How do we fight back? The very least we can do is have children and teach them before they get to university that binary language is flawed. Take the time and energy and effort and resources to build a relationship with your children, to have them respect you, and then to take more time to sit with them and discuss the futility of post-structuralism. Teach them of Wittgenstein's language games, of meaning in use, so that when they come to university, they are prepared for the battle and can win. The second thing that we can do is, as a society, is stop using binary terms to start with. The English language contains twice as many words as the French language and 4 times as many words as the Spanish language. The English language is very good at using lots of different words. The way we describe Schwarzenegger is buff, cut, iconic, large, massive, masculine, hulkish. All of these words, we don't have to say big. We can describe pretty women. We don't have to describe them as pretty. We can describe them as hot, fit, gorgeous, smoking, jaw-dropping, bombshell. We don't just have to say pretty. Western society now more than ever has to make an effort to stop using these simple supposed binary terms of tall and short, fat and thin. It's a good idea for everyone anyway. You sound simple, even to the point of being uneducated or even a little stupid, if all you can ever manage to call anyone is tall or short or fat or thin or young or old. Endeavor now to use non-binary terms as much as you can. Try, increase your vocabulary, think before you speak, use words that don't have the appearance of a simple opposition or opposed term that universities can capitalize on. So quickly they teach our children that fat and thin are the only ways we can describe anyone. And I sympathize with 17-year-olds that fall into that trap. It's an easy trap to fall into. But we can fight it, and we can fight it now by trying harder with our language. Have more synonyms at your disposal. Think before you speak, and have a much larger vocabulary every day than you did yesterday. But most important of all, when you come to value something, understand why you value it. Think about it. Have a good answer. If you value the presence of wealth over the presence of poverty, but you can't explain why, then the post-structuralists will turn, well, binary language, presence is just structured in a hierarchy of absence. But presence and absence are not important. It is wealth and poverty that is important. And if you can't explain that, if you value thinness because you like to run, or you like to be fit, or you think it is beautiful, then understand why you value thinness. Don't just say thinness. If you say thinness, the post-structuralists will create fatness and say it is a constructed hierarchy. You just value thinness over fatness and for no other reason. Don't say thinness. Say speed. Say beauty. Say litheness. Say health. And understand the reasons why to be thin is to be healthy. It is laziness that has got us into this position. No one values thinness for thinness' sake. There are reasons behind being thin that are valuable. Yes, we are in dark times. We may be approaching the end of Western culture. Things aren't great out there. I see it and so do you. But it doesn't mean we go quietly into the night. There is fighting to be done. I will have more podcasts. This isn't the end. Stick with me. I've got more answers for you. I can identify more enemies. I will lead as best I can. Tomorrow will come, and we need to be there to see it. Stay tuned, and good night, and good luck.
This concludes our broadcast day. Good night, and God bless America.